It has now been one full week of severe weather across the central and southern U.S., and the threat continues tonight. Texas, Tennessee, Oklahoma, and Missouri all had hard-hit moments in the past 24 hours.
Comus police officer's dash camera.
He was responding to block traffic into hard-hit areas south of town.
Oh, my God!
In a single week, parts of the United States looked like the end of the world had already started. A monster tornado tore a Texas town apart in the dark. In the same storm, lightning hit a fuel tank and turned the night into a wall of fire. Hundreds of miles away, a poisoned river kept pouring into the sea. Filling the air of an American city, people are asking the same frightened question all over the internet. Is this the end? In this video, we will show you exactly what happened, what is real, and what is actually driving it, so you can decide for yourself if this is truly the end. The night Texas broke open. On a Saturday night in late April, a slow-moving storm crawled across North Texas, the kind of storm that sits in one place and grows instead of passing through. A little before 10 at night, the radar lit up with a warning. Something potentially large and extremely dangerous was on the ground near the town of Runaway Bay, about 45 miles northwest of Fort Worth. It was a tornado, a big one. The National Weather Service would later confirm it as an EF2, with peak winds of 135 miles an hour. To put that in plain terms, that is wind strong enough to lift a car, strip the roof off a house, and throw a mobile home across a field. And it struck at the worst possible time, in the dark, when most people were home and many were already asleep. That is what makes a night tornado so deadly. You cannot see it coming. In the daytime, you can watch a funnel on the horizon and run. At night, there is nothing. The only time you can see it at all is when the lightning flashes. And in those brief strobing flashes, people watched their own neighborhoods being torn apart in front of them. Roofs peeling off midair, walls folding, whole trees ripped out of the ground and thrown. One survivor in Springtown said she had lived there her whole life and had never seen a storm like it. The things you would expect to blow away stayed put, she said, and the heavy things you would expect to stay put got thrown across the yard. Another described feeling the entire house lift off the ground for a second and then slam back down. She thought that was the end. By morning, homes were simply gone. More than 20 families had no place to return to. Power was out across the region, and at least 2 people were dead, including a 69-year-old woman found in the debris of her own home. But the tornado was only the first thing the sky did that night. The tank. A few miles away, in the town of Springtown, the same storm was doing something almost biblical in its violence. As the wind and rain hammered the area, a single bolt of lightning came down out of the storm and struck a gas storage tank at a plant on the north side of town. The tank went up. In an instant, a tower of fire rose into the night, roaring upward while the storm still raged around it. Picture what that looked like from the ground. A tornado tearing through the dark in one direction, and in the other, a pillar of flame lighting up the underside of the clouds. Wind, lightning, and fire, all in the same place, at the same moment, as if 3 different disasters had decided to arrive together. It is the kind of scene that makes people reach for the word apocalypse, and you can understand why. There is something in the human mind that, when it sees fire in the sky and destruction on the ground at the same time, immediately whispers that this is the end. It genuinely looked like the end of the world. Across the whole region, fire departments were overwhelmed. One county's emergency service answered more than 70 calls in a matter of hours. Hazardous material crews had to be called in. Power lines were down everywhere, draped across roads and tangled around poles. Whole communities went dark and would stay dark for days. And as the sun came up over the wreckage, the people of Texas were already asking the question that the rest of the country would soon be asking too. What is happening? Why does it feel like everything is going wrong at once? The answer to that was already unfolding, quietly, with no fire and no funnel and almost no cameras on the other side of the country. The slower disaster. Not every catastrophe arrives in a single violent night. Some of them arrive so slowly that people stop noticing until the day they cannot ignore it anymore. On the southern edge of California, where the city of San Diego meets the Mexican border, there is a river called the Tijuana, and for years now, it has been carrying something that should terrify anyone who hears the full story. Every day, sometimes millions and sometimes billions of gallons of raw, untreated sewage flow down that river and across the border, mixed with industrial chemicals from hundreds of factories, and pour straight into the Pacific Ocean. This is not a one-time spill. It has been happening for years, getting worse as the systems meant to stop it crumble. Aging wastewater plants on both sides of the border have failed and overflowed again and again, dumping waste into the water and onto the coast of one of the most beautiful stretches of California, a place that used to be famous for surfers and sunsets. The beaches there have been closed for years, not days, years. Some stretches of coast have been shut to the public for more than 1,000 days straight because the water is simply too dangerous to touch. Imagine a beach in your town being closed, not for a holiday weekend, not for a season, but for 3 years without a break, because the ocean itself had become a hazard. When you stand at the mouth of that river, what you see does not look like nature at all. After a rain, the contaminated water churns through concrete culverts and explodes into mounds of gray, fetid foam, piling up like dirty snow, while a yellow sign warns you to keep out. And for many families living there, leaving is simply not an option, so they stay and they breathe it day after day. But the water was never the worst part. The worst part is something almost nobody saw coming because nobody thought to look for it in the air. The air itself? A few years ago, scientists at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography discovered something that changed how dangerous this crisis really is. The pollution was not staying in the water. It was getting into the air. When the contaminated river churns through culverts and crashes into the sea, it throws tiny droplets into the breeze, and those droplets carry the pollution with them, lifting bacteria, chemicals, and a poisonous gas called hydrogen sulfide straight into the air that families breathe. Hydrogen sulfide is the gas that smells like rotten eggs. In small amounts, it is just a foul smell. In larger amounts, it makes people genuinely sick, causing headaches, nausea, breathing problems, and worse. And the readings near this river have spiked to levels thousands of times higher than the normal air of a city. Researchers put real numbers on it. The safe threshold is around 5 parts per billion. Sensors near a local elementary school have registered spikes above 300, and as high as 600, and the people who live there cannot escape it. A study found that the overwhelming majority of households nearby reported the smell inside their own homes, with the doors and windows shut. Doctors in the area describe children waking up sick in the middle of the night, again and again, not from a virus, but from breathing the air in their own bedrooms. The county has handed out thousands of air purifiers to families near the river, with the recommendation of 1 in every bedroom. But think about what that means. The official response to the air in an American neighborhood is to give every family machines to clean the air inside their own homes, because the air outside cannot be trusted. One scientist put it in words that stick with you. When the water is polluted, she said, you can close the beach, but you cannot tell people not to breathe. And while this continues, an even bigger issue rises in another part of the country. The sick and the forgotten. Doctors building networks to track the illness are seeing ear infections, rashes, stomach sickness, and breathing problems over and over in the same communities. A pediatrician in the area says she is now seeing more serious illnesses too, including kidney disease and stubborn infections in otherwise healthy young people. It is not only civilians. Just up the coast, the Navy trains its elite SEAL teams in the water near Coronado, some of the hardest and most carefully protected people in the entire American military. A government investigation found that around 1,100 cases of illness were documented among service members who trained in or near that contaminated water in recent years. The same water is making both small children and Navy SEALs sick in the same county, in the same country that put men on the moon. And here is the part that turns a tragedy into something that should make you angry. This was preventable, every bit of it. It is not a natural disaster that struck out of a clear sky. It is the result of decisions made far away, of funding delayed for years, of warnings ignored, of systems that everyone knew were failing and nobody fixed in time. The people living there did not create this. They simply happened to live downstream and downwind of a problem that the powerful kept promising to solve and kept putting off, budget cycle after budget cycle, while families breathe poison. Many of them are working-class families who have lived there for generations and have nowhere else to go. One resident said it plainly, "This is our home. We do not have another place to go." And the question underneath both of them is exactly the same. Why does it feel like this is all happening at once? Two kinds of ending. A town in Texas flattened in a single violent night, in the time it takes to brush your teeth. And a community in California being poisoned slowly, invisibly, over years, in their own homes and their own beds. One disaster screams, the other whispers. One is over in 20 seconds and makes every news channel in the country. The other takes a decade and barely makes the local paper. But stand back far enough and you notice something that should bother you. They are both the same story. The world is doing something it did not used to do, to people who did nothing to deserve it, faster than anyone is ready for. And once you start seeing it that way, you cannot stop. You start to notice how often it is happening, how the big storms come, a little more often than they used to, how the floods arrive a little faster, how the things that were supposed to be once in a lifetime keep showing up every other year, in a different place, with a different name, until the phrase once in a lifetime stops meaning anything at all. There was a time, not long ago, when a disaster like this was the worst thing that happened all year, and the whole country stopped to look at it. Now they stack up so fast that one is half forgotten by the time the next arrives. A flood here, a fire there, a town you have already stopped thinking about. The bar for what counts as shocking keeps rising, because it has to. It would be easier if you could tell yourself, these were just two unlucky stories from one unlucky country. But that is not what the rest of the world has been doing. It is not just here, because the same week that Texas was torn apart and California was choking on poisoned air, the rest of the world was not calm either. In the months around it, the deadliest and costliest March tornado outbreak ever recorded tore across the United States. In the Texas Hill Country, a river rose so fast in the dark that it killed more than 130 people, many of them children at a summer camp, in a single night. The water came up faster than anyone could run. Across the ocean, a cyclone named Senyar killed more than 1,500 people in Thailand and Indonesia. Another, named Ditwa, struck Sri Lanka and killed hundreds more. The ground itself has been restless. A massive earthquake split Myanmar and did something that startled the scientists who study these things, delivering its full force straight to the surface in a way they almost never see. When a giant quake struck near the Kamchatka Peninsula, a satellite caught the tsunami it threw across the Pacific, behaving in a way the experts did not expect. The kind of thing that is supposed to follow rules and did not. And in the far north, in the Arctic, where for thousands of years the frozen ground almost never caught fire, the land has begun to burn. Researchers say Alaska's Arctic is entering a fire era it has not seen in 3,000 years. Even the parts of the world we thought were too cold, too frozen, too far away to be touched are starting to catch on. None of these is happening in some distant century. They are happening now in the same handful of seasons while you are alive to watch them. Pull up a map of the last 2 years and start marking the disasters, the record floods, the record fires, the record storms, the quakes that broke the rules, and the map fills up faster than you can mark it. There is barely a corner of the world left without a pin in it. The thing nobody can explain away. Lay it all out next to each other, and something starts to crawl up the back of your neck. The storms, the fires, the floods that arrive in minutes, the poisoned air. The ground opening in earthquakes that break the rules. The sea behaving in ways the people who study it have never seen. Each one, on its own, has an explanation. A scientist can stand in front of any single one of these and tell you exactly what caused it. This pressure, that fault line, this current, that broken pipe. But that is each one, alone. Nobody can quite explain why they all seem to be arriving together. Why are the records not just breaking, but breaking all at once, in every direction, on every continent, in the same handful of seasons? Why does it feel, to almost everyone paying attention, like something underneath the world has quietly shifted, and everything built on top of it is beginning to move? The people who measure these things for a living will tell you the trend is real. They are not guessing, and they are not the ones selling fear. The numbers are rising. The events are getting stronger and stranger and more frequent, and the line on the chart is bending the wrong way, faster than it used to. That part is not a feeling in your gut. It is written down, in cold data, by people whose entire job is to stay calm. What they cannot tell you is where it stops, or whether it stops, or what it looks like if it does not. That is the part no chart has an answer for. And it is the part that should keep you awake. Because every system we have, every prediction, every plan, assumes that things eventually settle back to normal. That after the bad season comes a calm one. The quiet, creeping fear underneath all of this is a simple one. What if this is the new normal? So, is the end near? That is the question everyone keeps circling back to. Is the end near? People have read the signs of the end for thousands of years, in floods and fires and darkened skies. And that is not a thing a weather report can confirm or deny. But here is what is true, and what should sit with you tonight, no matter what you believe. The woman pulled from the rubble of her home in Texas was real. The children waking up sick in their beds in California are real. The river that rose in the dark and took more than 130 lives was real. None of it was a metaphor. None of it was a sign painted on a screen to frighten you. It happened to real people, with real names and real families, in the time it takes most of us to watch a video about it. And it is not slowing down. Whatever you call it, whatever you believe is behind it, the same kind of week is coming again. A different town, a different river, a different night in the dark. The only thing nobody can tell you is when, or where, or whose turn it is next. For most of history, people could at least tell themselves these things happened somewhere else, to someone else, far away. That comfort is getting thinner. The map of safe places is shrinking season by season, and the events that used to feel rare now arrive close enough to touch. So, we will leave you with the only question that really matters now. Not whether you believe the end is near, because that was never ours to settle, but this. If a week like this one came to your town tonight, in the dark, with no warning, the way it came to theirs, would you be ready for it? Sit with that for a moment before you scroll on. Then tell us, honestly, down in the comments, what you felt watching this. And whatever you believe is coming, stay safe out there.